Today, we're going to dive into a real masterpiece of Philippine literature. It's a short story that is so incredibly subtle, but at the same time, absolutely shattering. We're talking about Magnificence by Estrella Alfon. So, the story kicks off with this sentence. On the surface, it sounds so reassuring, doesn't it? But trust me, those words are just dripping with a kind of chilling irony that sets the stage for everything that's about to unfold. Now, to really get why this story hits so hard, you've got to know a little bit about its creator, Estrella Alfon. She was a total trailblazer in Filipino writing, carving out her own space by telling the kinds of stories that, well, most people weren't telling. You see, Alfon's world was deeply personal. She was all about giving a voice to people who were often on the margins. Women, children, the working class. Her stories are intimate, they're about family relationships, the daily grind, and she often pulled straight from her own experiences, which gives them this raw, super authentic feel. And that, of course, brings us to Magnificence. There's a reason it's her most famous work. It doesn't throw horror in your face. Nope. Its power comes from what it doesn't say. It builds this sense of dread that gets right under your skin, and it's almost unbearable precisely because so much is just left hanging in the air. All right, so let's walk through the story itself. It unfolds really slowly, kind of lulling you and the characters into this false sense of safety. So, enter Vicente. He comes into the family's home as just a helpful neighbor, a family friend. He steps into that warm circle of light where the kids are doing their homework, and at first, everything about him seems completely harmless. He's described as gentle, kind, soft-spoken. You get the picture. And this part is so clever. Alfon uses this really simple, innocent object to build his deception. Vicente understands this little childhood obsession, this rage for pencils that the kids have. And by promising to get them these cool pencils, he's not just being nice, he is expertly and chillingly winning their trust. And right here, this is where everything starts to shift. After he gives them the pencils, he asks this. It's so subtle, but it's that first moment where the story just starts to curdle. A simple thank you isn't enough anymore. He's asking for something in return. So, as the little girl goes to give him a thank you kiss, his arms suddenly tighten around her. This is such a key moment. She has no idea what's really happening. She's disturbed but innocent. She feels a wrongness that she just doesn't have the words for yet. Her danger sense is purely physical, purely intuitive. Okay, so let's fast forward to the next evening. This is where that quiet intuition explodes into the story's incredible climax. The next night, Vicente has her sit on his lap while she's doing her homework. Her discomfort just keeps building until, all of a sudden, she feels immensely frightened. That vague, uneasy feeling from the night before, it crystallizes into pure fear, and she instinctively leaps off his lap. It's like her body just knew the truth before her brain could even catch up. And in that exact instant, the mother, who's been watching from the shadows, speaks. To the terrified little girl, her voice is like a bell of safety. The protector is here. Her first words to Vicente aren't a question. It's not an accusation. It is a command. Do not move. Just 2 words. And with that, she completely seizes control of the entire situation. The power dynamic just flips, instantly. She doesn't scream, she doesn't argue. Her response is silent, physical, and just absolute. She slaps him again and again, literally marching him backward down the stairs and out of her house. And he just takes it, fleeing into the darkness that the story says ate him up. So let's unpack this for a second. Because what happened is one thing, but how it happened, that is the whole point. This story is an absolute masterclass in flipping expectations on their head, especially when it comes to gender. I mean, look at this. The story just completely inverts the typical gender roles. On one hand, you have Vicente, the aggressor, who's described with all these passive words, soft voice, slow manner, and in the end, he's just a cowering man. But then you have the mother. She becomes this image of sheer power, a tall woman with a voice of awful timbre and eyes with angered fire. And you know, when you look at academic analyses of the story, you can see just how deliberate Alfons was in doing this. The story systematically contrasts Vicente's gentle mask with his predatory reality, while the mother literally moves out of the shadows into a position of magnificent, glowing power. It's a total deconstruction of what we expect. There's a term for this technique, a reversal of gender assignments. Basically, Alfon flips the script. She makes the male character weak, passive, and pathetic. Meanwhile, the female character embodies all the strength, the action, and the protection. She's not just a mom, she is the guardian. And this whole thing with light and shadow, it's not just for decoration, it's everything. The story plays with it constantly. Vicente comes out of the shadows and into the light of the home to do his dirty work, only to be physically thrown back into the darkness. But the mother, she emerges from the shadows and is transfigured by a glow, becoming this figure of pure righteous power. So what's the big takeaway here? In the grand scheme of Alfon's work, why does this one story still hit so hard, all these years later? Well, for one, Magnificence is this profound statement about the bond between a mother and daughter. I mean, forget the whole knight in shining armor thing. The father's in the story, but he's on the sidelines, completely clueless. The real hero, the real protector, is the mother. She saves her daughter, and in doing so, forges this unbreakable bond built on shared experience and female strength. At the end of the day, Alfon wasn't just telling one family's story. She was showing us a strategy for survival. She was demonstrating how a woman can totally subvert an oppressive system, not with words or debate, but through decisive, magnificent action. Which really leaves us with one final thought. Magnificence forces us to look past the usual definitions of power. It suggests that real strength isn't about your size or your job. It's about protective fury. It's about gut intuition. And it's about the courage to stare darkness in the face and force it back where it belongs. So it makes you wonder, how do stories like this completely redefine what strength even is?